This is Slow Food Live. I'm really excited about our conversation today. We have the producers behind our summer slow food box with Foodocracy, which if you don't know more about that, we'll put links in here and we'll give you lots of context. And I'll hand this over to Lisa in just a second to tell you more of what the slow food box is. We're in our third box in our year-long series. It's a seasonal box, and this is a really fun and delicious box, as they all are, but we're really lucky today to have the producers behind 3 of the products in the box to tell us their story. If you are not familiar with Slow Food is an international grassroots organization. We are present in 160 countries, and we advocate for good, clean, and fair food for all. Of course, that means many, many different things. It's fairly broad. The food system is huge and complex. So today, the thing that we are focusing on really is our Arc of Taste, which is a list of endangered and rare plant and animal and foods that have historical, cultural, and social significance, aside from being an important part of increasing biodiversity in our landscape, which is crucial to the survival of all things, including ourselves. So without too much more from me, I'm going to hand this over to Lisa for a few minutes to tell us about Foodocracy and what the Slow Food Box is. We've been working with Lisa and Deep, the founders of Foodocracy, since the fall of last year, so 7 or 8 months. They are friends to Slow Food, and we're happy to have their support. So Lisa, if you could tell us more about that box, that will be great.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So we are so proud to be doing this box. It's just our favorite thing. We actually are a nonprofit ourselves with the mission of helping small batch makers and farmers reach larger audiences and compete with big food. Deep and I both come from backgrounds in big advertising, big food, and so we kind of we know what everybody's up against, and we want to help everyone with those secrets. So the box is a great collaboration with Slow Food. We love these ingredients, the small makers, and we're really proud that this is the second box. This is 100% Arc of Taste ingredients. So we wanted to create a box that was things that you're going to want to cook with all summer long, and they work so well together. We send them with recipes, digitally send you with recipes, so you get to know how to use all the ingredients together in cool stuff, and we're really excited about it. It's a great box, and we're happy to be doing it.
Excellent, thank you, Lisa. So I'm just gonna introduce each of our producers on here today, a very light introduction so they can tell you more about themselves and where they are and what they do and why they do it. We have Ramona Farms. Velvet and Brandy Button of Ramona Farms are here with us today, and they produce a bean called the Chilttepica bean. I do want to take a quick moment to recognize that it's June and you guys are producers, so I really appreciate you taking the time, because I know how hard it is to take an hour of your day away from the farm or your production. So I'm going to hand this over to Velvet and Brandy for you to tell us your story, how you came to grow this bean, why it's important to you and your family, and what we can expect from the beans in the bag.
Thank you. Well, I am Velvet Button, and yay, surprise, Ramona just walked in. So she's here with us, my mom, Ramona Button. She is the farmer and the brains and heart behind Ramona Farms American Indian Foods. We are from the Gila River Indian community in southern Arizona, just south of Phoenix, north of the Casa Grande area. And we at Ramona Farms have been farming since before I was born. My mom started with my dad back in the early 70s, growing barley and alfalfa, then getting into cotton. And as they were growing their farm, they were asked by the elders to bring back the bavi, and that is our Chilttepica bean, our traditional food. So I'm gonna let my mom tell you a little bit about why she's doing what she's doing. So Mom, this is the architect box we are in. So you want to say hello?
Good morning. I'm Ramona Button. I guess they introduced me already pretty well. And I guess my story started back in '74. when we began to farm here on the land, on the reservation, Gila River Indian Reservation, that is. And we started with cotton, you know, the usual crops, cotton, alfalfa, and different wheats, like the durum for pasta. And then being a nurse, I had studied being a nurse and working here at the public health hospital in Saskatoon, and just looking at the people every day and then wondering why is diabetes and other diseases coming onto the people, like heart, your liver, your kidneys, and then thought back to all my studies that I did and thinking, well, you know, my father brought me up this way to eat the traditional foods, and that's what I grew up on. Everything was grown, everything was processed by my dad and my mom and I. I'm an only child, and so to take all this in and think about the past, being with my parents and sharing, beginning to share, because he said, these are the foods, and just in talking with one of the medicine mans also about diabetes, and he said, you have to go back to your foods, your traditional foods, vegetables, cut down on your sugar, only take the sugar from the fruits and whatever's in the wheat or corn. And so the people here, I began to lease more land, and the people here said, well, you can lease our land if you will bring back the bub, the stotha bub, the swam bub. They only knew the brown tepary beans and the white tepary beans at that time. And we didn't have the black tepary beans, but it was known, but nobody grew it. So anyway, I said, okay, so, well, let's start here. And then I talked to my husband and said, do you think they're willing, my relatives and other people are willing to let us lease their land so that we can bring back the traditional foods that I grew up on, because I've seen the decline, not only here, but across America, of the health of people. And I said, my dad always has said, these are the best foods for your health, and also eating off of the desert plants and the fruits. And minimal amount, you know, no large portions, and 3 times a day, and it has to be fresh food. And so we began to discuss which lands we're going to operate on, and it was mainly on the south of the Gila River, just right east of where our little 10 acres was that my mother had, and we worked the 5-acre land there. So from there on, we went on to begin the brown and the white tepary bean, and sold it in large bags and took it to every place that knew it.
100-pound sacks.
Yes. And we traveled all the way to Parker, Arizona, and all the way to that's on the nation near Mexico, and all the way to Tucson.
And New Mexico, Albuquerque. We went to, when I was growing up, it was just a project, you know, family project. We'd hop in the car and it was like a family vacation. We'd go along and go to the Whole Food restaurant, groceries. They weren't Whole Foods back then, but I think it was Wild Oats and different other small groceries that catered to real good foods. So, but there was a lot of education needed behind that bean because it was so unfamiliar to everybody. So they weren't able to market it or sell it. So my mom and dad, back to the drawing board with the family, and decided to just start marketing in smaller packages, and of course adding our traditional wording, our traditional name for the bean, and our label has so much behind it. And my mom could probably tell you more about that, but the view on the package is actually the birthplace of the Bheem, our Ramona Farms Bheem. These mountains here are the view that our baby beans get to see every single day as they grow up and grow into your pots at home. But so that's, there's so much heart and so much love into this product because, you know, my mom and our family have grown up here, and we do very much love the foods. They're delicious, so you can't not love them. So it's a huge point of pride for all of us to be here and be sharing the foods.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know it can be really hard. I think the first step in bringing something like that onto the market is educating, is letting people know what it is, why it's important. And I also love your commentary, Ramona, on the idea that eating foods from the land where you reside is probably the healthiest thing you can do, and returning to the foods that your ancestors ate or your parents. It's so valuable, and I think it's huge that you're able to grow that for your community and beyond. I'm really excited to try that bean myself. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm going to hand it over to Gloria now with Chilttepica, and they produce the Chiltepin chili, and I will let Gloria tell you more about their story.
Hello, like you said, my name is Gloria. And we have a story behind the Chiltepin pepper that we grew up in. It's a native pepper to the region of the Sonora and Arizona desert to begin with. It grows in the wild, and some people call it the mother of all peppers. I'm going to show you here. I don't know if you can see it red. It's like a little berries, and it's, that's our, there we go. And actually, we started making salsa. That was our first item before we started with our spices, because there was a New Year's Day and my husband and I were sitting at home, and we saw a couple of friends of ours struggling through the market, that they lost their jobs, they lost their homes. So we said, how do we incorporate our, you know, our Chiltepin pepper to our stories here? And we said, what about if we were lose our jobs? And then my husband was always in charge in any family gathering of the salsa with Chiltepin, because he's from Sonora. And then I said, we'll make salsa and we'll sell it. And that's how this started, making it as a plan B in our lives. We had regular jobs back then, about 10 years ago. And right now, actually, we are the first 2 employees that Chilttepica has, my husband and myself. We still do most of the job, some packaging. The growing part of our Chiltepin pepper is done in Sonora by the Rio de Sonora area, which is a very prominent place to grow the Chiltepin. And this past 3 years, the harvest, we incorporated this very special project that we started doing. The harvesting of our pepper is done by all women. So there's about 10 to 15 women at any given time. The heaviest part of it, which could be like a whole month of harvesting, it is about 15 women that work with us. And it's been an eye-opening for me. It's been an incredible experience to have worked with all these women, and they're ready every year. And it's like, they're so ready when it starts. And our Chiltepin pepper right now, like I said, we have a spice line, but we still have some salsa, fresh local salsa that we make here in Tucson. And it's distributed through, actually family-owned businesses are the ones that are giving us the opportunity to carry our Chiltepin. And we're very grateful for that. And our Chiltepin, it's a very cultural thing, actually, here to the southwest of our, area of the United States. Like I said, it grows here in the area, and it grows wild. Sometimes it's a very, how can I put it? It's very fragile pepper up to a certain point, you can say that, because depending on the weather, there could be a year that we're not going to have Chiltepin pepper. So it is very, very, you have to take care of it. You have to make sure, being in the wild, most of it, it's a beautiful pepper, and we have to be very conscious about how we take care of it. The way we use it, Chilttepica, behind the name Chilttepica, I can tell you there's no meaning to it. We made that up because we use the first part of the Chiltepin pepper, and tepica in Spanish, it's like to get hooked on something. So that's how we came up with that. And I don't know if you can see the logo on our shirt. We have our Mexican flag colors to that. So it's a little joke, you know, with us being immigrants to this beautiful country, that we could incorporate a little bit of ourselves on that, on our name. And the story about the Chiltepin is that you grow up basically having Chiltepin in the middle of the table, especially at your nana's house, at your older generation, at your tia's house, with this little, we call it molinitos, and it's like a little molcajete, and it comes in all. This is done by the natives, the Seris, in the coast of Sonora, and it's made out of vine wood, and we use it to crush your peppers and put it in your food. So, and we have those, actually, of course, we have the saguaro, so, you know, representative of us here in Arizona. So growing up, it's a common thing that you can see a bottle of, actually, when you buy them through our local people that have it, everybody, it's like you might have it in a plastic jar or something, or it's very common that when you cross to Sonora, at the stop sign, you have people selling chiltepines for you know, that they grow on their own and bring them up, and that's what they do at the October, November, when people start harvesting. You can see them all over in the Sonora Nogales, which is our border here south of Tucson. We have it. Also, what I can tell you about the Chiltepin and share with you guys is they call it the mother of all peppers. So for us, it's like I said, it's a very special pepper. So we use it in all of our foods, being very flavor. It has a lot of flavor, and we do have, and I make this up myself, sea salt with Chiltepin, which you use it for your scrambled eggs. You can put it over fruit. It's wonderful. Over an avocado or watermelon. It's a delicious thing. So we have all kinds of little recipes. We have recipes on our website. You can always check with us. I'm a phone call away or an email away. Ask any questions you might have. We learn about the pepper every single day here with us. And it's like, oh, let's try it like this. Or my husband cooks a lot with me too. So let's try this. I can tell you I'm working on a vinaigrette with Chiltepin, which is very excited for us. And a couple more little items that I'm trying to do now that we have the time that most of us are home, and try to play with that. But like I said, feel free to, you can visit our website. We have recipes. And like I said, I'm a phone call away. Feel free to reach out. And if you have any questions, any ideas for me to keep working with our Chiltepin, that will be welcome also. So that's who we are. And this is who Chilttepica is.
Perfect. Thank you, Gloria. This just gets me excited again. One of the things I love most about this box is that each product is such a strong tie to the culture and history of the people from where it comes. And also really different between the four of you. So I love that. And I also, when I travel, love taking note of what is the thing on the table at every meal. It's different in every house and every culture. It's different. And we had a chef on a while back who said, you know, black pepper is just another spice. It just so happens that we put it out every time. And that what that is changes for different families and different people. So I love that, especially because I got kind of hooked on putting dried pepper into my scrambled eggs. So I love that. It's a versatile thing. So thank you so much for sharing your story. That is wonderful. And I will turn this over to Clay now, who's with Oliver Farms, and they produce the bene seed. I think you make more things with bene seed, but what we have in the box is oil. So maybe you can tell us your story and how you came to produce, or maybe that is, I know that we have had Oliver Farms bene seed at Slow Food Nations in the past, and it is a beloved product with all of our chefs who know it well, especially our chefs that come from the South. So we're looking forward to hearing your story, Clay.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, guys, and I've enjoyed listening to all of you. I'm pretty familiar with you, each of your story, Ramona Farms and Gloria. I followed you guys, what you're doing, and of course, Slow Foods. Thank you for what you do, putting it out there. But my name's Clay Oliver, and I'm from South Georgia. And a few years ago, I had the idea that I wanted to make biofuel from crops that we could grow. Through that, I got led into making food-grade oils, and we started with sunflowers. Growing sunflowers here on the farm. Pecans are native here, so we began using them, and then peanuts. And from that, we began branching out into different crops and seeds. And as you said, you talked with some chefs. Well, a chef in particular out of Charleston, South Carolina, reached out to me and said, "Can you make oil out of bene seed?" And I was like, "Well, I guess so. If you get me some." I was vaguely familiar with what they were, but it's a type of sesame. And bene is native to Africa, and it was brought to America during the diaspora, along with other fruits and vegetables, and it made its way into the cuisine regionally within the slaves themselves and the plantations. It caught on a little bit, but it fell out of favor, if you will, when other crops became more prominent, like cottonseed. When, as Dr. David Shields has written, when they figured out how to get the smell out of cottonseed and make that mass-produced seed usable, things like bene and others fell out of favor. They didn't have the cultural connection like olive oil did to certain areas, so it fell out of use. So the chef reached out and asked us if we would do it, and we were able to make the oil. It has a splendid, bright flavor. We get our seed in particular from a company called Anson Mills. Anson Mills makes superior quality products. They're always fresh. It's always good stuff. And the seed is just, it's got that great flavor that chefs find they don't see in many other places. Compared to regular sesame, it's just brighter and has a little more peppery flavor to me. The way we use it most is on salads. We also like to roast carrots with it or any other vegetables. And it's pretty good as a butter substitute for me. Like right now, field corn is coming in and field peas. I use it as a butter substitute, like give it an umami flavor, you know, just another layer of flavor in there. It's really good that way. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Clay.
Yep.
We had a conversation with Chef Kevin Mitchell, who I'm sure you know, a couple of weeks back, and he mentioned your oil, one of our Slow Food Nation chefs that loves that bene seed oil, and he talked a little bit about the history of that seed and how it came. He's in South Carolina, so how it came to the Carolinas, and one thing that he mentioned that I think is a big part of the reason we're doing this today is sort of saying that the best thing we can do with our food in order to honor the cultures and groups of people from which it comes is to really know the story behind it. So I personally think that's extremely important. And I also think it opens up this whole world of knowledge and relationality to other cultures. And I also think it's really interesting because it seems to me part of the reason chefs like it so much is because it goes so well with the other products that grow in your region. And I think we could say that about anything. What's growing in the Sonora Desert, you know, those chilies are going to go really nicely with the other products of the Sonora Desert. What's growing in southern Arizona, you know, where you guys are on the reservation is going to go really well with products that are native to that place. So I think this is a really interesting and wonderful thing to take note of. We're in a moment where we can get anything from anywhere, but it really doesn't go super well together always. And I think kind of learning the story behind each of the ingredients and behind each of the foods is also really inspiring. You know, if you learn what else grows in the same regions that tepary beans grow, I think we're likely to know what goes well together and learn much more about the people, the stewards of that land and the stewards of those products. So thank you for telling your story. And it just reminds me of that conversation with Kevin. And he mentions Bene Sita has a very, very big cultural significance. I think the more we know, the better we are. So this is why it's so valuable to have you here today to share your story. And Lisa and Deep did an awesome job of putting together a really cool group of products. So the only producer we don't have on today is Geechee Boy Mill, and they produce many things, amongst them the Jimmy Red cornmeal, which is what is in the box. So Lisa, maybe you can mention a little bit about that, since we can't have them today.
Yes. So unfortunately, they had a family emergency this morning, and so they were unable to hop on this call. Troopers that they are, they were willing to like do the call from their phone on the way to their emergency, and we said it's okay. So I can tell you a lot about them. Giselle, if you can give me screen sharing, I can throw up a picture of Greg at least, so that we could see him. And I can throw up a picture of the Jimmy Red corn. So Geechee Boy Mill is a really phenomenal organization, farm and mill down on the Edisto Islands, the South Carolina Sea Islands. And Greg is very committed to preserving cultural foodways of the South. And he grows a lot of historic and heirloom grains there on his farm. And one of them is the Jimmy Red corn, which is kind of this amazing arc of taste ingredient that has sort of a mystique around it, if you will. There's so much lore around the Jimmy Red corn. It is the much sought after. Jimmy Red corn, they believe dates back to the Native Americans, but they're not sure exactly what tribe it was that was growing it. It then made its way down to the South, down to the Low Country region, and was a big part of their culture for a long time, until it kind of just fell out of favor. And it only stayed around because it has a very high starch content, and so moonshiners were using it to make hooch. And because of moonshiners, otherwise we wouldn't even have Jimmy Red corn anymore. And then there's kind of a lore which has been told that the last moonshiner died, and a seed saver went and grabbed a few ears of corn from him. Last corn would be gone extinct. And then Chef Sean Brock got a hold of those seeds, worked with that seed saver, got a hold of the seeds, gave them to Greg Johnsman at, here, I'm going to throw up a picture. I think I've got the ability here. Here we go. Here's Greg. So that's Greg at his Geechee Boy Mill, gave Greg some of the seeds and asked him to grow it. And Greg went on the long process of growing, saving every year until he had enough to produce crops. Now more people are growing it, but very, very few are growing it commercially. Greg also mills the corn himself on antique equipment. Greg works on these ancient mills that he works, and he does that specifically because the older mills work slower. They're not as fast as modern mills, and that means that the grains don't heat up, and it retains more of the natural flavor. And I will tell you, when you open a bag of either grits or cornmeal from Jimmy Red, you're just hit with this smell of nutty, kind of almost a hazelnut smell, and the sweetness of fresh corn, and a little bit of like the smell of field grass. It just feels fresh and amazing. And I've made up some hoe cakes from this Jimmy Red corn, which are pretty incredible. That's another, traditional food element from the Southeast. Those of us in the West are like, a hoe what? But those on the East Coast know hoe cakes all the way from Nova Scotia down through Florida. Along that coast, hoe cakes were very important with them. They're sometimes called Johnny cakes too. They have a lot of different names. And they believe hoe cakes actually come back from the Native Americans. They believe it's a mispronunciation of Shawnee cakes, and the settlers started calling them hoe cakes. But it's a really lovely corn. It's the corn grows yellow on the stalk, and as it's dried, the outside of the corn kernel turns a deep ruby red, and that's where it gets its name, the Jimmy Red corn. So when we make cornmeal or grits from it, you'll find the grits are yellow, but they're flecked with red. And so you get these lovely little flecks of red in anything that you cook from, like cornmeal or corn cakes or anything you cook from the cornmeal. It's a really lovely ingredient to work with. And Greg there on their family farm, he and Betsy do everything. They have a great operation there, lovely people, and they are very, very committed to the land and preserving Southern foodways.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Let's see, let's kind of stop screen share. Here we go. Perfect. Thank you. That's great. I think so. Slow food is really a high value is biodiversity, and I think all of these really are products. And the corn and beans come to mind specifically. There's a visible diversity that you can really see the difference between a Jacob's cattle bean and a black tepary bean, a white tepary bean, a brown tepary bean, a red ear of corn, a yellow ear of corn. I still remember the first time I went to Peru and I saw this like rainbow of potatoes, and I was pretty young and it just blew my mind. I didn't understand fully then. Now I've dedicated my life to it, but that there were so many different varieties of these. I just thought a potato is a potato, a sweet potato is a sweet potato, but here I am in red potatoes, purple potatoes, striped potatoes. So what I'd love to talk about a little bit is sort of the unique characteristics of these products. Like we can start with the tepary bean. What do you love about it as far as taste goes, or maybe the plant itself and growing the plant itself? I know that I have varieties that for some reason are just really enjoyable to grow and then of course to eat. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the unique characteristics of these three products, and then also how you like to cook with them, so that when we get these in our homes, we can be inspired by your cooking practices and habits with these products. Maybe we can start with Ramona and Velvet and the tepary bean. And I know there's you are growing 3 different types of tepary beans. So maybe talk a little bit about what's the is there a difference between them that you can sense in flavor or otherwise?
Yeah. Okay. So the black tepary bean that is in the box is a very deep, rich, bold flavor, reminiscent of chocolate. Like it is such a really lovely flavor just all on its own. Really super delicious in spicy salsas and hummuses and all. But I like it most in chocolate recipes like brownies. I just made a chocolate frosting, a vegan chocolate frosting with it. I make a chocolate mousse with it. I mean, it is really super delicious. You can really just let your imagination go. There's a chef at the Kai restaurant at the Sheridan Grand, Chef Ryan Swanson is making miso with it. So, I mean, you can really just do so many amazing things. And the brown tepary bean right here, the brown tepary bean is nutty and earthy and has a lovely texture, kind of like a boiled pecan or boiled peanut. It's very nice in soups and stews. It doesn't fall apart. It stays intact, and yet doesn't have a shell on it. The shell or the coating on the bean is very, very nice, very digestible, very delicious. The white bean is sweet and buttery and has a very, very smooth texture. So good for making hummus, especially good for salad dressing, sandwich spreads, and just good as a hot bowl of beans with a pat of butter and salt and pepper. Oh my gosh, so good. And of course, if you like it spicy, a little Chilttepica. That is so super yummy. We also at Ramona Farms grow 4 different colors of indigenous corn. We grow a Pima 60-day white corn, which is our traditional corn here. And that is a really lovely corn. It's prepared in many different ways. We produce here at Ramona Farms a panoli or a hock choy, which is a roasted wheat product. And it is one of our oldest recipes in the Americas. It is this here. It is a finely ground mesquite roasted corn or wheat, depending on which product you like best, but it is just the mesquite roasted grain, stone ground here at Ramona Farms, and it is traditionally used as the runner's food. So long ago, when our runners were carrying messages across the hot desert, they would just take a little bit of the choy or panoli and tuck it in their cheek and run on down the road, and it was a food that they can imbibe as they ran. So the world's first fast food. And these are the wheat berries that we grow that out of. And then I don't have any whole corn here, but I have cornmeal. So we also grow a red corn that is from the Havasupai tribe. And then we also grow a pink corn and a blue corn, both from Hopi tribe. And those are seeds that are gifted to us long ago, gifted to my parents for partnerships during times of drought, no rain. The northern Arizona tribes farm off of dryland farming. And so when they don't have enough rainwater to produce their crops, they've in the past asked my family to grow the corn for their ceremonies. So in turn, we get to just share in all of that. So it's really kind of a nice thing for us here at Ramona Farms. It's really a beautiful partnership. So yes, and then we also we have grits and cornmeals for cornbreads. And seasonally, we have a product called Gaia, and that is a traditional food from the Gila River, and that is a product that is roasted in the field right at harvest. So in like a month or so, we're going to be harvesting that, and it's going to be in the field, 120 degrees. But we got to roast it right then to capture the sugars at a certain point. And it roasting it at that point makes the corn or crystallizes those sugars. So it makes a very nice, when you cook it up, kind of like it's a porridge, a little bit like risotto, but it or chopped rice. It's not like a polenta or cornmeal where it will glom together. It kind of falls apart on the plate really beautifully because those sugars have not turned to starch. They were crystallized. So it has a really interesting, chewy, delicious, roasty, sweet flavor that goes so well with short ribs and pearl onions and some garlic. But then also equally as good with just a little bit of cream, some agave syrup, and some fresh wild berries. So, I mean, so much good stuff.
I'm like so hungry now. Suddenly. It sounds like it smells really good too.
Oh yeah.
It sounds hot, but it sounds like a wonderful thing near. Thank you, Velvet. I think it's really, really wonderful to learn a little bit more about using ancestral wisdom and the knowledge from those that came before for how to grow these things and how to process them and when to roast them, and the reason why you're able to do it so well. So thank you for that. That sounds delicious. Gloria, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the Chilttepica and just the qualities, the flavor qualities of it. And it sounds like it may be more common to use dried, and maybe why is that? Why more common to see and use dried versus fresh, or is it?
Actually, it is more common to use a dried pepper, the Chilttepica, but you can always, actually one of my favorites is the green, but it has to be pickled. It has a totally different flavor when you eat it green. It is, you can have it pickle and the same, it's a common thing for us, like I said, to have it in the middle of the table and just grab it as you eat. Our peppers are sun dry. You put them out to sun. There's a smokiness to it, and it's a natural smokiness. The flavor as it sun dries. The way I can describe it, it would be the you bite into it and it doesn't burn as you taste it. It kind of lingers. It kind of goes to the back of your mouth, and there's the heat, and it kind of lingers out. So it's not a spice that would just burn your lips and your mouth and stuff like that. It's more flavor than heat. It is a spicy pepper, but it has a lot of flavor. The way we use it is basically we use it, the most common thing would be for our soups. Like if you have albondigas, menudo, any kind of soups, any kind of broth would be very common. You crush a pepper and you put it in your soup. Actually, my favorite, I'm a pretty medium myself. My favorite, and I have it in my website, it's a recipe of a flan with chiltepin.
Oh.
Which, yes, it's one of my favorite ones. There's the fat brings the heat down, so you kind of have to use a lot of it. I use for a flan, a medium heat, I use about 10 chiltepines, which is, it gives it a kind of a hint, but it doesn't, like I said, it's not going to overwhelm. You don't lose track of the taste of your foods either. That's one of the criteria of the chiltepin pepper, that if you're having something sweet or something salty, you still can taste your recipe, your foods, and then the heat of the chiltepin, it's there, the smokiness to it. You can still taste both. It's a mixture in your mouth. It's just a wonderful, what can I tell you? Describe it. I love it. I love it. I use it also for the most common, like I said, in our families and around us is for fruit also. Squeeze a little lime over your watermelon, oranges, and put a little bit of chiltepin. We also have it ground, which is very, very, convenient for us, that you just kind of sprinkle it around. So we use it for, for basically for everything other than, on top of that, it's a very healthy pepper. This pepper was used for digestive problems. So it might send a different signal, pepper, spicy. No, it was, in years past, was used for also to cure. It's a healthy pepper. So that's the best way I can describe the pepper, the chiltepin pepper, for you guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Gloria. And this brings something else to mind, which is that so often flavor is equal to nutrition, or when something has that much flavor, and I think beans are a good example of that too, because a lot of the beans we know, they don't taste like much and they're probably not that nutritious, but beans are like an unsung hero of nutrition if you get the right ones, and peppers, and I would argue seeds the same. So I think that that's a good note that especially when I'm talking to kids, I'm like, if it's colorful and it's flavorful, it's good for you. I think they kind of fall into that. And another reason why understanding the varieties is so important, that we can, I think people in this moment especially are really waking up to all the different varieties they can get and put in their pantry, especially dried goods.
Scrambled eggs, it's a perfect, you can really taste also, or just sprinkle the sea salt with chiltepin over scrambled eggs, or if you have that tolerance of the heat, just crush just one pepper over your scrambled eggs, and that mixture, you can really tell the flavor also of the chiltepin with scrambled eggs.
That sounds delicious.
I will say that, so I'm a medium to low heat. I'm from Ohio originally. So like I'm not the girl from Arizona, right? So for me, and even though I'm not a medium heat, and this pepper is rated a 9 out of 10 on heat, it's not too hot. Like, it's one of those great peppers that you can spice it up if that's your preference. Mm-hmm. Deep is from India, and so she takes it really hot. And we always say if the spoon's not melting, it's not hot enough for her. She just adds more of them, and she loves it. We love how flavorful it is. It just has such a great, amazing flavor. Yeah, it's a really lovely. And that salt, by the way, Bloody Mary, kind of.
Micheladas or Bloody Marys, yes.
Good, great. That sounds delicious. Excellent. Clay, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the Bene seed, especially since you've produce different oils from different seeds. And what is unique about Bene seed? You mentioned that you like to use it with certain things that are about to come up. What are the qualities of it that you really enjoy and make it unique?
Yeah, it's just a all around very versatile oil. It has a decent smoke point. You can get it 375 easily. You know, it's again a great salad dressing. It's been written back for years for its use as a salad dressing. But I think one thing that we're learning is the health benefits of this oil, and that it has a ton of vitamin E in it, more so than sunflower, which I thought was the highest oil in vitamin E. We're seeing significant numbers higher. So for skin issues, you know, burns, scars, it could be useful not only for culinary uses, but also for, you know, for those issues as well to help them. But I think the neatest thing about the Bheem is its story and where it came from, how it got here in America, and how it's being brought back now and being used more in a commercial sense than it was ever before. In talking to directly have cultural ties to this seed, you know, it's so important for them to carry on that tradition and the uses of those things, and to not have them lost, and to be, I guess, commercialized like modern sesame would be. And, you know, a lot of the corns, like these ladies are reviving the old beans. I mean, it's a common theme here with everyone is the cultural ties, the passion that you have for what you do, and that pride that it instills not only in you, but in you know, in your people. And I think that's a huge benefit, that we need to continue doing what you're doing and telling these stories.
Great, thank you. I think that I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about the plant to seed campaign that Slow Food does, which is a garden plant to seed, those sorts of seeds. And this is one thing that we talked about, which is when we name these things, it's not just a black bean, it's a tepary bean. It's not just a hot pepper, it's chiltepin. It's not just an oil, it's Bene seed oil. I think it's super important to name them. I mean, he asked, you know, how do you think this campaign gets this stuff into more gardens? And I think it's, you tell people, you put it on the menu and you name it, that this is, you know, tepary bean soup with Bene seed oil drizzle and a sprinkle of chiltepin. Like, I think it's really important to be identifying these varieties as what they are, so that people can go further and learn the story behind them and the cultural and historical significance. And exactly what you just said, Clay, is the reason some things in the Ark of Taste are commercially available, but they have such a deep cultural or historical significance and importance that they're part of the Ark of Taste, because it's very important that they remain in existence, remain in cultivation to the people that brought them here and first cultivated them, or were already here and first cultivated them. And sort of assigning that to the right people is important. And that's part of what we did with Kevin Mitchell, is to go through, like, here are the things we know as Southern food, but here's where they really came from, which is the lesser known story. So really appreciate you sharing that story. And thanks for the cooking tips. I'm really excited. I love the potential to put them all together. That's really fun. And since we're getting close to the hour, I do want to mention that the Slow Food box is currently, the summer box is currently available. I strongly encourage you to order one. Our Slow Food community has been really excited about it, because it's giving exposure to Ark of Taste ingredients, and what Lisa mentioned, to family farms and producers that are making products that they're passionate about and that really mean something to you. These are the businesses we want to support. These are the people we want to give our money to keep these things in cultivation and keep the stories connected to those foods. So check out the Summer Slow Food box. Grab one for your home. It comes in such a pretty box. You guys did such a great job with the box itself. I still have mine. And then you can keep up with Foodocracy. I know that you, Lisa, create recipes for the stuff that you have in your shop, and they're wonderful recipes. And I'm really excited to try all these suggestions from you guys. So unless you have anything else you'd like to add, I will just say thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your stories.
We appreciate the opportunity to have us here. Thank you, guys. Thank you to all of you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
From
Thank you
here.
for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take good care. We appreciate you. And good luck out there in the heat.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.